Welcome to the Purpose Chasers podcast, where those who refuse to let odds or naysayers stand in their way come to chase and catch their true calling. I'm your host, Mark Crandall. In each episode, we shine a spotlight on artists and musicians who dare to dream bigger. You'll hear the real-world tactical moves these Purpose Chasers have taken to carve out their legacies, and I'll break down the marketing strategies you can swipe and implement today. Let's dive in and start chasing our purpose. Don't forget to leave a follow on Spotify or wherever you stream from. Let's dive into this episode. Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of the Purpose Chasers podcast. I have Laura Sandifer, who Laura, we played message tag for a minute. She was on a trip with her children. Where were you again?
We were heading to France. One of my sons is a paraglider, so he basically jumps off of mountains, and there was a mountain in France he wanted to jump off of, so I thought I'd go watch him. So we were headed there.
And so we played Facebook Messenger tag, and I didn't think I was going to get her on the podcast. I felt like I was going to have to get into my gifting, like bringing value to her to get her on, which is, for those of you who follow the podcast, that's something that I truly believe in. When you show up in somebody's life in a way that they can't ignore you, they tend to think about how they can impact your life. And so truly, truly special interview. One, I want to highlight, Laura, that you are the first live interview that I've done since launching the new format of Purpose Chasers, which I'm super excited about. Two, this interview about you starting the Acton Academy, which we're about to get into, is really, really full circle for me, due to, little man being 5 months old and me starting to think about how, it's like the shift from, thinking about, and I'm going to share this, I was talking to, for those of you listening, I was talking to Laura about this, and I was like, we need to get into the interview because this is going to be great content for the listeners. It was when we just moved to Philadelphia, and my wife works as well. She does sales for Dell, and I do what I do. And we needed a sitter, for little man. And, we could easily get a babysitter. We could go on help.net or whatever. Like, there's all these different sites to get these people. But then Megan's best friend from high school homeschools her children in this really, really cool learning environment. She's like, look, I can I asked Megan, would she babysit or would she enroll little man into this world? And so our son, he's there right now, is in this homeschool environment where they have set tasks that they do. Like, I think from 9 to 11, they play music, and, and then they go into reading. And so he's already at 5 months old coming into what you've created essentially with the Acton Academy. And it's really, I remember going to school and just hating it. And just struggling. And because I struggled, I was placed in special ed classes. And with all these learning disabilities and medications, the diagnoses and the medications and the special ed, it really created a lot of limiting beliefs within me. And I was taught from a very, very young age to essentially shut up and sit down. And it wasn't until moving to Austin 4 years ago, to getting connected with a bunch of entrepreneurs, that this fire inside of me erupted. And I just want little man to have that fire erupted in him from age 5 months. No, that's not a dumb idea. What are your thoughts on that? Where are we going with that? So, Laura, I heard you at QLM, which is Hal Elrod's mastermind, which is no longer going to be a thing at the time of this airing of this recording. He's not doing it anymore, which I'm so happy for him that he's focusing more attention on his family. But I heard you at QLM, and you gave a presentation on the Acton Academy and what you had created. And it literally peeled my head back. Like my mind, I had no idea that there were people out there thinking the way that you do and your husband did, to start something that is just so foreign to our society. So I'm like a little kid right now. Laura, thank you for coming on the Purpose Chasers podcast. Really excited to have you here. And just truly, truly blessed for what you're doing for the adolescents, the future leaders of this world.
Wow, Mark, thank you so much. And you sharing that little glimpse into your childhood experience with school just brought tears to my eyes, because I feel like so many children suffer under those labels, and we're just doing such a disservice to children in this world. So that gets to what started my journey. I had 3 children. One, I'm a stepmom to, and she was in a elementary school. I think she was in the 3rd grade at the time, just clicking along, doing just fine. Our 2 young boys, Sam and Charlie, were in a pre-K Montessori program. So we were in that typical parental place of having to make a decision of where our kids would go to school. Jeff and I both came from big traditional public schools in our background, did different things as adults. When we met each other, we both had a passion for learning, and we're excited that we had these children and, just wanted the best for them. And so Jeff came home one day. He had picked up Tate, our daughter, from her little elementary school, and he was walking towards me as he came in the driveway, and I could tell something was really wrong when I looked at his face. And he looked at me and he just said, "Laura, we're not doing this anymore." And I said, "Not doing what?" And he said, "We're not doing this school thing. There's no way I'm going to let our boys sit behind a desk and be talked to for the next 12 years of their lives." He had just come from the school and had a conversation with a teacher there, one of the best teachers around, who said, when he asked him, when should we transition our boys into a traditional school? And the teacher said, "Oh my gosh, as soon as possible." And Jeff said, "Why?" And the teacher said, "Because the longer they're not in that system, the harder it is going to be for them to sit all day and be taught." And Jeff was like, "Well, I wouldn't blame them." And the teacher said, "I wouldn't either." And with that conversation, we decided we weren't going to do that anymore. We were lucky enough to have some freedom. I wasn't working. And Jeff said, "So you can either homeschool them or we're going to create our own school." And I could not do what you and your wife's friend is doing with homeschooling. I just couldn't. That seemed overwhelming to be my children's coach, teacher, mom, all that. So I said, let's create our own school. So we literally started from scratch. So if you, Mark, were going to create your own dream school for your sweet boy, it probably would be something like what we created, because what we did is we started with this fundamental belief that every single child is a genius. And what we mean by that is every single child, every single human is born with creative potential that is unique to them. And the job of learning is to uncover those gifts and to learn how to work hard and hone those skills. So then when you go out into the world, you can do something that matters with your life. You can start a business if you want that serves a particular customer or need. You can be an artist. So the idea simply was every child's a genius. We're going to start right there. And then we just pulled things from the very, very old that we knew worked well, like the Socratic method. Asking questions is so much more powerful than being told what to do. We wanted hands-on learning. So things like entrepreneurship, starting at age 5, our kids start businesses and they have children's business fairs. They learn how to make things and do things and sell and solve problems. And then we injected online learning. So when we were doing this, it was 10 years ago, online learning was really hitting the ground as something powerful and with, limitless possibilities. So we thought, let's forget about textbooks. How old is that when you can Google things? The world, even information is changing as we sit here. So we just played around and created this. And I was having a blast doing it. And then I realized, we need to find some people to join our school. So that's when the journey got tough for me. When I realized our idea to other people sounded really crazy. So even my family and friends, they're like, "You can't mess with school. I mean, is that even legal? Can you just create school and it be a valid thing?" So lots of pushback, lots of questions. I was pounding the pavement, just hoping someone would trust me enough to join us. And we found a total of 5 other families who said, yes, we'll join you on this mission.
I want to dive in just a little bit right there, because, as a purpose chaser, and for those, those individuals that are in my Purpose Chasers community and that are listening to the podcast, it's something that doesn't get talked about enough by successful humans such as yourself, right? And individuals that chase purpose regardless of what people say, because chasing purpose isn't cool. Getting in line and going where we're told to go is what's cool. And, you're essentially against the grain, against the stream. You're out there. So when individuals started, like when you came up with this idea and it sparked and you were like, this is it, I'm going to change the world. And you get all excited as we do, right? And we're like, this is it, this is the thing. And then somebody essentially shits on your dream and says, that's stupid, you can't do that. Where did your mind go? Did you just immediately keep taking action, or did you stop and go back to your husband and say, maybe this is dumb?
Yeah, totally. I was scared to death, and it was a very lonely place to be. I was used to being part of the crowd that was doing the big stuff, the good stuff. And suddenly I was alone, and I really, Jeff was the place I would go. So I think it's really important in those moments that you have someone you can go to when you're feeling weak and scared, that can just say, it's going to be okay. He didn't have any answers either. Neither one of us knew if this was going to actually work. It was just an idea. But he was crazy enough to say, it's going to be okay. Let's just take, one day at a time. So I kept moving forward, and I did have his support, but I also had my 2 young boys, so the need was so urgent, because I did see the fire going out in their eyes when it came to school. So that was my driving force, was my children. So I was driven by them, even though I didn't have all the answers, that people really wanted answers. So Jeff was a support. The excitement of my boys about trying something new was inspiring to me. And then I was able to hire, my first hire was a guide. Her name is Kaylee Reed. And she was at a point in her career, she was a Montessori teacher, and she had quit her job. And I could sense she had an entrepreneurial spirit. So the idea was, we loved the principles of Montessori, but we just felt there was something missing. And she had enough curiosity to join me. So there I had this wonderful teacher who people could give credibility to because she had taught before and really understood the Montessori principles. And then I had this entrepreneurial mindset, let's improve it, let's make it better. And together with the energy of her and with Jeff and I think together that was a synergy that people really could sense something interesting was happening, even if we didn't know how it was going to turn out. So what we decided was to focus on our mission, that every single person who enters our door will find a calling and change the world. We were really mission focused, and we were not going to change that. But we also wanted to be open to experiment all the way. So every day we felt like we were building the airplane as we were flying it. We literally were trying things. If it didn't work, we'd try something else. Everyone who joined us had that same sort of mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset of, work really hard, be really optimistic. The abundance theory was kind of infused into everything we did. It was a very energetic group of people who joined us. But like I said, we started small. It was just 5 families, a total of 7 children, and that was it. And we actually did not have a long-term plan that this would become anything significant. We literally said, let's just start small, grow very, very, very slowly. And that really helped. So I didn't feel like I had to change the world. I literally had to solve the problems in this one day. And then I'd go to the next day and solve the problems that one day. Slowly, the story started getting around that these children are happy. Like, how crazy that these children are happy going to school. What is the deal? What is going on in that little building called Acton Academy? And so the word got around, and little by little, people wanted to look and see what was going on. We had a friend from Guatemala walk through, and he's an entrepreneurial genius, and he is a systems guy. And he walked through, and he could tell that there were layers of systems in this little room where the children were free to make their own choices all day long. So even though it seemed chaotic, he saw that what was happening was actually really intentionally planned and executed, but the adults would step back and the children could take over because of these systems. He said, I want to take that and start one in Guatemala. Would you let me? And we said, sure, absolutely. He was a good friend and we totally trusted him. So he started an Acton Academy in Guatemala City. And from that point, other people started realizing they could take what we'd created and start their own little school for their own family in their own communities. And that's when things started getting really scary for me, because I had been flying under the radar, and now people were looking at what we were doing and really analyzing it even more. And that's when I think I probably suffered the most, because I suddenly did not want people to know our story. I did not want to talk about it. I did not want it to be written up. I loved our magical little school with 7 children, and I would have been very happy just to keep it that way. But suddenly there was other parents really wanting to help their own children. So I felt called to help those parents, and I had to battle my inner demons of my fear of making mistakes and kind of being a perfectionist, my fear of being different from everybody else, my fear of having to have an opinion that was contrary to really smart people's opinion. And so I was having to put myself in uncomfortable positions. And I think every time I did that, I learned more about myself and became less fearful. But the fear was always there. I just had to live with it. I had to learn to live with that, the unknown.
And there's an aspect of it as an entrepreneur, and I'm a new entrepreneur and happen to be doing good at it, right? And it's the curiosity, and it's an entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial, or like just the word entrepreneur is getting such a bad rap because everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, right? And that's like the buzzword of today, and they don't really understand what it means, right? And you've nailed it with the Acton Academy. To me, entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur is more about being scared on a daily basis and figuring out how to get through that fear so that I can see what's actually so, like what's in actual reality. And I love being challenged. And I love, there's two schools of thought. And I thought about this analogy when you were talking about it. We had to build the plane as we go. There's the individual that jumps out of a plane and they think the whole time they're dropping out of the plane, they're like, oh, what if I hit the ground? And then there's the other school of thought that are thinking about like, wow, like who created the parachute, and how does this parachute turn? And look at that tree over there. And I've never been so high. And there's just like two schools of thought. And I think that's really what defines an entrepreneur. And I believe that what you are talking about and what you've created with the Acton Academy is becoming popularized, if you will. And I believe it's being popularized and becoming more talked about. Gary Vaynerchuk dropped a video about how, I'm not sure if you've seen it, I can send it to you after this, whether you like him or not. The video was just like, and he doesn't care what people think about him, at least when he's on video, he doesn't. I'm sure he does when he goes home. But he dropped a video about how our education system's broken and we need to do something to change it. Like, why are we going to, here's when it changed for me. I got to share this because I was watching that Gary video, and then I was preparing for, I was watching all the videos on the Acton website, which will be in the show notes. And I was like really thinking about this moment that I had in grad school. And I don't know if you know this, but I thought that getting a master's degree was success, and no one in my family had done it. So I have a master's degree in social work, and I'm like an expert online marketer and really good at sales, right? Like it really doesn't add up, but I did what I was told. And I was in grad school, and I had 2 moments. One was we were in a race, culture, and oppression class, in which I was finding out all about my white privilege and something that I didn't know about. I wasn't taught about in school, this white privilege thing. And come to find out, like, I had a lot of racist thoughts. And like, as a white human walking this earth, we have a sense of entitlement, right? And like, blah, 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 blah. And we get forced to read this book, which was A People's History by Howard Zinn. and we're reading this book, and it's like accurate accounts of all of this misinformation that I was given in grade school. Like, why are we celebrating Christopher Columbus, who raped and pillaged a country to steal it? And I just had so everything that I've learned is a lie, like one of those moments. But then it became really, really clear to me in the same class. I did a presentation, which was pretty outside of the box. And we had to do a presentation, and then we had to lead a debate. And I got a B-, which if you got a C in grad school meant you were on academic probation. The professor challenged me, and I challenged her even harder. And I said something, was like one of the clearest thoughts I'd ever had, but also like really abrasive and something you shouldn't say in the center of a room with somebody who is the expert. Right. And I said to her, I said, your bias that you bring into this class makes it really, really hard for us to learn. And it was like that moment and the Howard Zinn moment and hearing you talk and like seeing Gary's video that made me realize like we do need to change. And then my wife and I, through a 5-year fertility journey, had little Hammy, that's his nickname. It's little Mark, but I call him little Hammy. We had him, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to raise my child inside of an Acton room. And I don't want him to be told, no, that's stupid, right? And my wife and I have had she's anxiously awaiting this interview because she wants to hear all about it, right? But like, we want to go, okay, great. That's an amazing idea. Like, what do you think will happen? Like, what is your plan? Okay, if that happens, where are you going to steer the ship? And I don't want him to say, essentially, no, don't put your hand on the hot stove. I want him to evaluate. Okay, so it's heating up and it boils water. Like, what do you think that'll do to your hand? Right. And I want to really spark this curiosity in my son. And I get really fired up about it. And it all came from hearing you present the Acton Academy. So I got to take a moment to thank you for being a purpose chaser, and thank you for not allowing people to shit on your dreams and to what you've created today. Because as a new father, I can't imagine raising my child the way that not how I was raised, but what I was forced to do. I was a hellion. Like, I did not thrive in a sit in your chair and do your homework. I've never passed a math class. To this day. I haven't. I only passed stats in grad school because I went an hour early and I stayed an hour late. Like, I just don't have it in me. Why do I need to learn math when I can literally type whatever it is on Google and it will tell me? Shouldn't I be putting my mind to better use? So I want to acknowledge you for being I don't even know how to say it. I was going to swear, but you're just such a leader. And thank you.
Oh my
gosh.
You
go from, you are like, you're changing the world. And I plan to, in picking my interviews for season 2 of Purpose Chasers podcast, I don't care like what you've done in business or what your stature is. My audience doesn't care. Those of you listening, you don't care. You proved that by downloads. You don't care what their name is. You care about the impact that they're bringing to the world and how clear they can be on talking to you around how they overcame the limiting beliefs that cropped up. So here you were with just a small group of individuals, and it's starting to take on new life. You have new people coming in. You have your friend, the entrepreneur from Guatemala. He comes in, he's seeing the systems unfolding in the classroom. You're still evaluating this fear of what if I fail, which we all have, but most people never step out there and experience what it's like to actually succeed. So where do you go from there?
So we just, it's your question's really good because I didn't have a plan. So where I went from there was simply just continuing forward, which every day the children were asking questions and presenting more ideas that just made this whole thing blossom. I really give credit to the children in this model because they just, and I think all children do this, and this is why it grew. Children can do so much when they know that you believe in them and you trust them and you respect them. And I think what we did is we used the hero's journey as the framework of everything we do at Acton Academy. So our belief, obviously, that everyone is a genius, but also that each person who enters our door is a hero who deserves a hero's journey. Now, our definition of hero is what is really important. So with the young people and with the parents, we contrast hero to victim. And so the identity that Acton Academy gives a young person is this identity. A hero takes responsibility when a victim blames other people. A hero looks for solutions to problems when a victim would make excuses because things just didn't go well. A hero keeps going when it gets hard, when a victim quits because it just gets too hard. So the identity that everyone in the room has.
I got to have you replay that.
Okay.
Bring that back. Bring that back.
All right. So picture you have hero and victim. And what we're challenging each person at Acton Academy is to claim the identity of a hero, because that's what you are. Now, a hero takes responsibility for their actions. A victim makes excuses. A hero looks for solutions to problems when a victim blames other people when things go wrong. A hero keeps going when things get really, really hard and dark and they want to quit. A victim quits because it's just too hard. So every day, situations come up, problems happen. This isn't utopia. Acton Academy is not utopia. I'll put it out there. It's life. It's the real world, frankly. We just continually throw back the question, are you going to be a hero or a victim right now? And if you play the victim role, you kind of need to find a different place to go, because this is a place for people who want to take responsibility, not make excuses, and keep going when it gets hard. So little by little, that kind of identity, when you're with a group of people who lives like that, that is powerful stuff, because they feed each other. So you will be a victim some days. I mean, we all are. We just kind of fall into, we just mentally get tired, or, our spirits are crushed, and you need someone else to remind you of the hero within. So that's the storyline, the narrative of an Acton Academy experience. So we just kept going along this. We kept creating quests. So instead of projects or subject areas, the children go on 6 to 7 week quests, and they're given challenges to unravel every day. And the end of a quest is a public exhibition, and they share what they've learned and their nuggets of treasure that they're bringing home with them, which is really what they've discovered about themselves. So it's this idea of creating new quests, of asking big questions. That's the journey. That's where we just kept going. So one of our rules at Acton Academy is that an adult will never answer a question, will never give a lecture. We believe that children, when they're in that kind of Socratic mode, they become very resourceful intellectually. Children are so smart. They can do way more than we ever imagined. And that's what we were seeing play out in front of us. So we just kept going. I mean, that's all we did, is just keep going. And then other parents decided that they wanted to start their own Acton. And that's when the story changed. And that's when I had to take steps to document the work and package it so that other people could use it. We had to really get clear and simple so that we could pass it along. Now there's over 200 Acton Academies around the world. And we have probably 1,000 parents every week send in an audition through our website to start one for their own children. So there's just something, the fire within humans, that when you can keep it alive, is really, really powerful.
1,000 auditions a week?
Yeah, that's for the first step. It's a 3-step funnel. So there's that goes through the sales funnel. Not all of those will make it to the 3rd step. But I think we're going to get a lot more Acton Academies in this world. And it has nothing, I really believe it has nothing to do with me. I think we tapped into the human yearning to do something that matters with life, which is exactly what you're doing with your work. People chasing purpose and doing something with their lives. So the questions that the Acton Academy families are that claim to pursue are, who do I love and who loves me? So, we're all seeking love and relationship. This is about relationship. You don't do these journeys alone. Will my life matter? Will I do something that matters to the world? And was I a good person? Will I make decisions based on what's right and wrong? And the very simple educational philosophy is that clear thinking leads to good decisions. Good decisions lead to good habits. Good habits lead to your character, and character determines your destiny. So every day we're just working through tools and processes for very simple decision making and habit formation. And this starts at a really young age. We have preschool Actons now, 4 to 6 year olds, and then go through elementary and high school. My boys are now in our high school.
So 2 things that came up for me, and I could go a million different directions, but I don't want this to be a 3-hour interview. I will have you back. The first question is, out of 1,000, I'm really big on limiting beliefs, right? I'm really big on studying the psychology of humans and what stops people. And so 1,000 individuals submit auditions to open an Acton Academy. What's the drop-off rate from step 1 to step 2? And what do you think is preventing the gap of individuals from making it to step 3?
It's a really great question. And we actually are trying to dig into that because we want to understand more. Step 1 is really easy. You click through a few questions. Step 2, it gets a little harder. So there's not a huge drop off between step 1 and step 2. Where the drop off is step 3. And that's when there's a lot of research we ask people to do to dig into the why, to really understand our philosophy and vision and make sure we're a match philosophically about learning and failure. We also have them do some analysis. We have 2 criteria: that you'll have your own children in your school, some skin in the game makes it real. And 2, that you have experience as an entrepreneur, that you understand you've built something from scratch, basically. It could be a nonprofit, it could be a big project or a small business. But the idea is you've experienced what it feels like to start something up and pull it together and handle the stress of the finances and the hiring and the firing, all that goes into building a small business or running a big project. Those are the things that start getting people to opt out if they don't have that experience, for example. Or maybe they are an educator out in the world and they thought, oh, cool, I want to start my own school, but they don't have their own children, and they'll drop out because it's really more of parent entrepreneurs is how the funnel kind of ends up playing out. But I would like to dig into more, the parent mindset, like parents who are really busy running their own business. Can they really start their own school at the same time? But they are. There's a magical thing that happens for some people, and that's why we have 200 of these. But I would like to understand more what maybe we're missing, something that could make it easier for people who want to do this, but are just so busy they can't, but they dream of it for their own family. So that's a challenge we're facing right now. We want to understand that piece of of the network. What's fun, and then I'll toss it back to you. What's fun is we have found the network itself is the biggest, most valuable thing we have. We have this network of entrepreneurs who are passionate about their children's learning and the Socratic method and the hero's journey and building something that changes the world. And they're giving feedback to each other all the time. Jeff and I have moved out of being the experts. I mean, we could die tomorrow and this thing will move forward without us. That's what I'm excited about. The network feeds itself and it just gets better and better and better. The more people that contribute to it. We have Google Forms, and every day we get 3 or 4 kind of Q&As back and forth. Oh, I'm doing the rocket quest. What did you learn from this? Or, oh, we're doing civilization and economics. What did you learn from that quest? And everyone's feedback just makes this whole model so much better. So it's continually improving. And I think we have very little to do with that. Humans just feeding each other can do wonderful things.
What's coming to me is I want to challenge you and Jeff and the Acton community and ask or beg you to not make it easier. I don't think you should make it easier, because what came up for me in hearing what you shared with me was that the submission step 1 in the process, or step 3 in the process, is very, very easy. And this is a metaphor for life. anyone and everyone will do what is very, very easy. And then the drop-off rate is getting individuals to identify their why. And that's the drop-off rate of all purpose chasers. And I preach this to, my academy. Like, if you don't know your why, you will quit when it gets hard. And if individuals aren't devoted to find their why of why they're starting an Acton Academy, I would gladly let them go. And I do the same thing with my academy, my purpose chasers. If I have a vetting process that's not the easiest, anyone can get through it, but you need to do some work. And the individuals that don't do the work, like, I don't do this for money. I do this for impact. I don't want you in the academy because you're going to quit. You're going to ask for a refund. You're going to become a pain in the butt. I want individuals that are willing to do the work, because when it gets hard in life and the world shits on you, because it will. Individuals with the scarcity mindset that don't believe that they can achieve things, they're not going to believe that you can achieve things. Right? So, man, this is just, and you said something, and I want to ask this, and then I want to wrap our interview, and then I want to do a bonus section with you, which will only get shared with the Purpose Chasers community. How early are you planting the seeds of the hero journey? Like, this just, what impact do you want to have in the world? Like, how early are you planning that? It just fires me up to think, like, I'm already doing affirmations with my son. Like, he's 5 months old, and I'm already saying to him, I don't care what the world tells you, you can do anything. Anything, at 5 months old, I'm already like, how early? When do you think it's too soon? And like, when when my wife's mom says something to my son and she like tries to save him from something, my go-to reaction is like, please don't do that, because the world's going to be tough on him. And I want my son to learn, when you bang your head off a wall, are exactly what you just said. I have goosebumps. I've had goosebumps this whole interview. Right now I have goosebumps because like, I want him to know, like, what's going to happen when he walks into the wall again. Are you going to take a step back and realize why you walked into the wall? Or are you going to blame me because I put a rug in front of the thing which caused the wall? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I love how you are as a dad so much. First of all, at birth is when it starts. I think the hero stories, I remember reading the same book over and over when my babies were, they didn't know what I was reading, but I didn't care, because I was like, I'm reading this story. It's going to somehow seep into their genes. But children need hero stories, in my opinion, as much as they need food and water, because they feed the soul, and they help a child understand that they can face challenges, they can solve problems, they're going to be okay. It's going to be hard. But they've got it within themselves. And I also love, so the hero stories, start them young, start them early. Children, they resonate with children. I mean, every child thinks that they're a superhero who can change the world. And the funny thing is, we drill that out of them, when the truth is they're right. And I'm not talking about the superpowers that you magically disappear, just the power that you have something unique within yourself that matters and the world needs. But also what you brought in was not just the hero story, but the real world consequences, falling down and bumping their head, whatever they do. Letting children really experience, children are natural learners. That's how they learn to walk. They fall down and they get back up. They don't quit learning to walk. So we have learned to step back as much as we possibly can and just let kids figure things out. They'll figure them out. They'll figure things out, unless someone's getting really hurt to where it's dangerous. But we really let things play out. I think 3 things parents can do that are really powerful, and I've learned along the way with this journey. I didn't know this when I started out, but parents need to stop answering so many questions, and parents need to tell the hero stories like we've talked about. Always lots frequently in their own hero story, tell about your own problems, your own vulnerabilities. Hero stories include problems. They're not like fanciful things that no one likes a hero story where the hero didn't face a challenge or fight a monster. So that's part of the story. And then finally, let them scrub toilets. I mean, give children real work to do that they feel they can take responsibility, and that work is part of life. I think when we hide children from the fact that life includes working, then we are doing a disservice for them. I think humans are built to work, and it's a joyous thing to do. Sitting on the couch and watching videos is not a joyous life. We all have been through those phases. But when you learn the joy of doing work that matters, even if it is cleaning the toilets. I use that as an example because at the end of every day at Acton, we stop the day before we have closing group, and they all have a job, and they go separate for 15 minutes, and it's studio maintenance time. They literally scrub the toilets, they clean the floor, they take out the trash, they separate the recycling. They spray the countertops and wipe them down. And the idea is you take care of your space because your space is sacred. This is where we learn, and this is where we grow into who we're going to be. And it's a beautiful place to be. So 15 minutes of every day is literally cleaning the space. And I think those kinds of real life responsibilities just help children learn to contribute work as a part of being a thriving human.
And I want to piggyback off that because I think there's something to also teach the youth, which my son's going to learn in his own way through watching his father. And that is, it will take me about an hour and a half to mow my lawn. And there are people that do that for a living. And does the cost of me hiring somebody to mow my lawn outweigh what I can make and earn and what I can create in life, right? And so there's this, if you don't want to clean your toilets, there's like, there's kind of this like time value that gets learned. Laura, thank you so much for coming on the Purpose Chasers Academy. You've changed my life, and I'm sure you've heard people say that a lot. As far as speakers and presenters at QLM, you were the highlight of that event for me. And mainly because I had a little man coming in and I knew that I wanted to do this differently. And, you don't know my story that much, or maybe you do, but like I come from a childhood in which I could very easily play the victim and blame everything on all of the things that happened to me. And instead, I've learned through my own spark of curiosity to use that stuff as motivation to instill this why within me, which is now my son, my little man, little Hammy. Thank you so much. And for those of you listening, all of the links to learn more about Acton Academy, to grab Laura's book, to anything to do with what we've talked about will be in the show notes on the website. Also, if you're interested in the bonus questions that I'm about to ask Laura, you can head over to @ThePurposeChasers on Facebook, join the community, get in there. That's the only place that you will find the bonus content. So, and as you know, I've been storing bonus questions for this entire interview. Laura, thank you so much for who you are in this world and for not allowing the world to shit on what you had in your mind. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. You good with answering a couple questions?
Sure.
So I just have to acknowledge you. Thank you so much. Like I still have goosebumps.
I have goosebumps from you. It goes both ways. So my gosh, you have me all teary-eyed and goose pimply over here. Thank you.
I mean, it's not like, I just view what you're doing is like you're changing the world. And it was, I had that meeting with you, and then I learned about what Mike and Lindsay were doing with their children. And then I interviewed Mike and Lindsay to talk about like the board meeting that they have with their children. And I was like, oh my God, there's like this other way of parenting. And like, I'm not going to hit my kid like was done to me, and like all of these things. And so now her mom, who's, 9 to 5 retired, and like, she doesn't get it. And she's like, you're going to send your son where? I'm like, he's going to an entrepreneurial school. It's called Acton Academy. She's like, well, how much is that? And I was like, I don't care. My son's an investment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the bonus content for the Purpose Chasers community, my people that are out there. I want to get into the nuts and bolts, because a lot of people do things for money. At any time when you were developing the Acton Academy, and I don't know if this is like a loaded question, did money come up? And did you ever catch yourself like in this? Here's what I'm asking you. Did you ever contemplate stepping on your own values in an attempt for financial gain when trying to fulfill on your mission?
So no, I never would have. So let me answer the first question. Did money ever come up, as we were doing this? And yes, we were very, very focused on bootstrapping this as a startup business. So part of the Acton model is it's a low cost model school, meaning.
Can I just let me pause you just for a second, just for those listening. So bootstrapping, for those of you who don't know, that just means that you fund your business. You come up with the money. You don't seek angel investors or people to contribute to this. It's your own thing. You're coming up with the money.
Thank you. Yes. So the tuition, it would be tuition only. We would never ask parents for donations or anything like that. But we also wanted the tuition to be low enough where eventually we could get it extremely low, where just about anyone in the world could afford a private education, just to give parents a choice. So we wanted to be low cost. We invested very little in, furniture, fancy stuff. We basically had an asphalt sport court. It was just a parking lot that we put a fence around and put a mobile basketball in and painted a 4-square court. We had no administrative staff. Still to this day, the school phone number for our school is my cell number. We don't have a landline. I do not have an assistant. Long story short, we're very lean and scrappy in terms of our cost. And we really wanted the tuition, that what parents pay, to pay for everything. We're still very committed to that. But it caused us to have to sacrifice things that I didn't want to sacrifice, but had to. So I wanted it to be beautiful. I wanted to have, a fancy field for the kids to play sports in. But Jeff was always you always have to have that sounding board. And he was the one who would always rein me back in, and we would get right back to mission. We would get right back to the idea is that children can create their own play. You don't have to give them fancy playgrounds or something. So we have stumps in the field as our playground. Long story short, I did not feel the need to sacrifice my values, but I was having to limit my dream to stay within the confines of our budget. So it's very typical of any startup business in that sense. But the model itself is a pretty lean model in terms of what it costs to run one of these, and people can make a living doing it. So that's kind of what's appealing to people with our model, is you can make a living owning a little school, and people can afford to pay the tuition because it's pretty low cost. Each Acton is its own business. We don't have any business affiliation with them. So everyone makes up their own tuition amount, for example. Some people have lots of scholarships to offer, some don't. They're still building that capacity. So money is, I think, a really critical thing. What I've learned, and this is kind of funny, I did not come from an entrepreneurial background. My father was a minister. My mom was a teacher. We had no money growing up, but we felt rich for some odd reason. I think my parents just instilled this idea of we got to travel, we loved each other, and so we felt rich. It had nothing to do with money. And then I married a man who's an entrepreneur and very intentional about talking about money. And so I had to make a shift. And what I've learned through Acton Academy is talking about money is not an icky thing at all. It's a very spiritually healthy thing to do, to understand what your relationship with money is. You need money in this world, so you may as well have a good relationship rather than a bad relationship with it. And that's what we start instilling with children at a very young age, when they're building their small businesses and selling their product and analyzing profit versus revenue and sunk cost. So I think the idea of money is important to talk about. I think it's important to understand what your value system within that is. And we basically define being rich as just not spending more than you make. It's not, everyone has a different amount of money that they think is important to have in their world, but that's a very personal thing.
It's brilliant. And I just want to respect your time because it is our hour mark and that's what was devoted in your calendar. And I just want to end with exactly what you just said. Like a profit margin in a business just means that you make more than you spend. A profit margin in life just means that you make more than you spend. And there's this really blurred line when it comes to purpose that you make money for, right? And it can be very, very spiritual. And it's all based off, the money that you make is all based off the value that you bring to the world. And I'm just so, so grateful. I got to ask you this, and then I want to let you go. Would you be open to coming in and doing a live within the Purpose Chasers community for a Q&A if they wanted that?
Absolutely. I would be very honored. Very, very honored.
Maybe even get you and your hubby in there.
Oh, that'd be fun. Sure. Thank
Awesome.
you for the invitation.
Laura, thank you so much for your time. I'm just so grateful to have you on.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Purpose Chasers podcast. If you're ready to take action, don't wait. Head over to thepurposechasers.com to access notes, resources, and a host of other tools to keep you moving forward. And if you want to supercharge your digital presence, visit scaletosaleconsulting.com to partner up with my team and amplify your impact. Let's turn your purpose into your biggest asset. Until next time, keep chasing, keep creating. Your purpose awaits.